At this point, I'd like to introduce our third guest, our third speaker. It's someone who is a part of our family, someone who's committed to our cause and has really been a key part of this initiative. Dr. Mahender Dewal, who's a founding member, head of research and product development at Expansion Technologies in Cambridge, Massachusetts. Dr. Dewal is a biotech entrepreneur and biomedical scientist with over 20 years of multidisciplinary experience across a number of research areas. He has spent a lot of time in developing the novel antibacterial and antiviral agents for HCMV and HIV infections. And when the pandemic hit, Dr. Dewal actually switch focus. He and his research team started developing monoclonal antibody therapeutics to fight the COVID-19 infection. Dr. Dewal has presented at a number of international webinars and participated on several panel discussions and is always keen to share news and debates and facts, a lot of facts on COVID-19 infections and recent developments on vaccines, as well as the therapeutic remedy. Dr. Dewal has been recognized by the Ministry of Youth Empowerment and Sports at the government of Karnataka and is associated with a number of human rights associations. And he is a champion for us for COVID-19. So Dr. Dewal, I welcome you again to the forum to share your expertise.
Thank you. Thank you so much for such a wonderful and kind introduction, Sabita. It gives me an immense pleasure to share today's platform with such an eminent personalities like Dr. Kiran Bedi Garu, Dr. Saraswati Garu, Ms. Manisha. So I would like to thank Lead India for giving me this wonderful opportunity. So today I'm going to speak about the possibilities of the third wave. That I have made a couple of slides that I'm going to share quickly, and then I'll get going. Can anybody see my? Oh, you got
it. Yeah, we can see.
We can see that.
Can see that, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So does the third wave inevitable in India? So what I did was I did some analytics on the real world data, looking at the other countries, what's going on in the other countries, the rest of the world. So how they are dealing with these waves and variants and things like that. So my next slide, this is a statistics, worldwide statistics. I listed a few countries that are competing in the cases. You can say, India used to be 5th position, but now it came to the 2nd position based on the number of new cases with the second wave that hit the country a couple of months ago. But fortunately, it's still in the 3rd position in the deaths number compared to the US and the Brazil. But let's look at data, how each country fighting. First example that I took is Israel. So here on the left side, the plot shows that number of new cases. It's a rolling average of 7 days, raising per day per a million people. So you can see the first wave, second wave here are there, and so the waves are there. But now you see there's a little spike, probably because of the variants right now, like in July month. But let's take a look at the hospitalizations. It's pretty tightly controlled, right? There's a small hike, it's 1 or 2 cases, but it is not like very highly considerable. But one another data, you can take a look at this. Again, it's for per million people, rolling average of 7 days. The deaths completely controlled. It's zero, almost zero in Israel, right? It's a great country, very well controlled. But why? How this has happened? The best reason, the only reason is vaccinations. You can see that approximately 63% of the population, the country's population, got at least 1 dose of the vaccine, which shows the importance of the vaccinations. But the variants, again, spike in the cases, number of cases. That's because of the variants. So a good example to learn from this country. The second example is UK. Now there are 2 waves. You can see that which already. The third wave, you can see the spike in the cases, in the number of cases, increase infections. That's because of the variants again. But see the hospitalizations here, down here. It's very well tightly controlled, and deaths almost zero, right? Even in the first 2 waves, the death rate is very high. But now in the third wave, the death rate is completely controlled. And this spike in infections is due to the variants again. But how the death rate and hospitalizations are controlled? Again, the vaccinations. 68% of the population of the UK got at least one dose of the vaccine, which shows the importance of the vaccine again. And they're very close to the herd immunity. If you reach to the 75% percentage population receives at least one dose to two doses of vaccines, they're going to go towards the herd immunity. The next case is I analyzed for the United States. Take a look at this. The first and second waves, these little bumps you may call 1, 2, and 3, or whatever it is. The waves these are the previous waves, and there is a bump in here. But you can take a look at right now in July, what's happening. There is a little small spike. Again, that's due to the variants, but hospitalizations nearly zero. And the death rate, first two waves, death rate was really crazy. But now you can see that the death rate is quite controlled. Again, it is due to the vaccinations. About 55% of the population of the country received at least one single dose, indicating the importance of the vaccination. So now what we learn from here is even the variants increases the spike, but the vaccines controls the hospitalizations as well as the deaths. Let's take a look at another country, which is the Brazil from the South America. So here, if you look at the Brazil, this is the first wave, and the second wave started somewhere in November. It's never ending. Still ongoing, the second wave. Now it's kind of low, slowly it's coming down, but you never know what's going to happen here. And the hospitalizations data, we do not have any idea. The data is not available, unfortunately. But the death rate, the first and second wave, highly increased, but it seems like it's getting towards the controlled. It's kind of going down. It's being controlled. Again, this is due to probably the vaccinations. Still, the country, according to the population, they're only 38% of the population vaccinated, which may not be sufficient, right? That's what is probably causing this spike. What kind of other factors? Let's take a look at it. I did a little bit more deep dive into the reasons why Brazil, there is no control on the spike in the cases. So there's a nice article, a news article published in the New York Times. The reasons that they highlighted is, number one is, the most important thing is the vaccine scarcity. They don't have enough vaccines to vaccinate the people, number one. And the second thing is, people are not practicing the COVID adaptive behavior. That's another big problem, because you can see the shopping malls are open, restaurants are open, their beaches are open, they're going crazy, and they're not wearing the masks. This is one of the other reasons. In addition to that, again, the variants. The Brazil itself has a Gamma variant, their own variant, in addition to Delta and Beta variants. So variants also is the reason for not coming the cases, daily new cases down in Brazil. And the next example is South Africa. Again, in South Africa, the third wave already started. You can take a look at the case number, daily new case number went more than 300 cases per day per million people. And unfortunately, we don't have any hospitalizations data from the South Africa as well. But again, the death rate is increasing. First wave, second wave went down, and the third wave, it's already started. Death rate is increasing. There are multiple reasons could be. And the vaccinations, you can see that only 6% of the population got at least one dose in South Africa. Again, I did a little bit deep dive into what could be happening here. In South Africa, the major problem is the vaccinations. They're not getting enough vaccination because they don't have their own vaccinations. The country is not developing, but they're totally relying on the World Health Organization and the rest of the other countries in the world to get vaccinated their own people. That's one of the reasons. Second thing is the Delta variant. The Beta variant already from the South Africa, it came out. In addition to Beta, now they're experiencing the cases from Delta variant. So vaccine scarcity and variants are causing that spike, the third wave. So there is something to learn from this data as well. The next country is Russia. So Russia seems to be controlled very well for the first and second waves. It came down, and then third wave started, it seems like, in Russia as well. Including the death rate is going all the way high. We don't have hospitalization data, unfortunately. The very interesting thing is Russia is one of the countries that started developing a vaccine from the beginning, early stages, and then they got the vaccine approval probably before the United States and the rest of the world, in fact. And the vaccination rate is very, very, very low. 18% of the population was vaccinated only. That could be the reason for hiking in this the spike in the cases as well as the deaths. What's happening in Russia? Let's take a look at the data. So again, this article published in New York Times. indicating that the major problem in Russia is the vaccine hesitancy. You can see that, most of the people, they're not trusting their own vaccine. They don't want to take the common people. That's a major problem causing the rise in the deaths, which indicates the importance of the vaccines as well. And the next thing is the Delta variant. The Delta variant entered in Russia, and that's another reason spiking the cases. The increase in the death rate is most probably due to the vaccine hesitancy, but spiking in the cases certainly from the variants and as well as the vaccine hesitancy. Now, so from these countries, from this data, what we can learn, what are the factors that influence to get the third wave to come, to avoid the third wave, which is increased vaccination, no vaccine hesitancy, and concerns towards the new variants. We have to be very careful. The third thing is following COVID adaptive behavior, which we can learn from the Brazil, where they're not following it. And what are the factors that increasing the chances of getting the third wave in India? Vaccine scarcity, vaccine hesitancy, and slow vaccination rates, and also variants of concerns as well. Then again, the third one is the most important one, which is people's careless attitudes, not following the COVID adaptive behavior, is one of the reasons that may cause to hit the third wave in India. But let's take a look at what's happening in India right now. The data. So daily new cases went down, all the way down compared to the second wave in a couple of months ago. This is a good news, very good thing. And even the death rate is also controlled. That's probably due to this vaccinations and the lockdown that imposed a month ago. And the vaccination rate, if you take a look at that, 21% only people are vaccinated, which is very, very concerning, because that India is very densely and largely populated country, which we need to increase the vaccination rate to control the third wave not to come. But is that happening? Let's take a look at what's happening in here. See, vaccine hesitancy. I mean, my apologies for that. So people are not caring. They're not following the COVID adaptive behavior, and also the vaccination rate is not going as fast as it's supposed to go. So this is what I would like to say. What is it? So we still need to increase the speed of the vaccination, number one. I mean, this is an article published one in New York Times, which is in one day, 8.6 million doses were administered, which is really great, but it still needs to improve to vaccinate the country, most of the country, like the Europe and US, to avoid the third wave. In addition to the vaccination, people are not following their COVID adaptive behavior, and the variants. We have the Delta and Delta plus variants are, we have to be very concerned, and we have to follow this COVID adaptive behavior to control the third wave. And so I think, after finishing my presentation, you may have a better idea than me, but now you can say whether is it inevitable or is it avoidable, or is there is a third wave is going to come on. So I'll let you answer this question. That's all I would like to say. Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm going to stop my presentation now.
Thank you, Mahender. Great information.